I was reviewing blueprints with a client in Chicago when my phone vibrated. Derek, my husband, of 8 years. I excused myself to take the call, expecting our usual check-in. Instead, his voice was cold, almost gleeful. "I'm divorcing you, and I've already sold our apartment to start my life with my new girlfriend. Enjoy looking for a new place," he laughed. I kept my tone neutral, replying, "Sounds good." After a pause, he demanded, "That's all you have to say?" I simply answered, "Yes, I'll see you tomorrow," and hung up. He had no idea what was coming. On the flight back to New York, I stared out the window, my mind retracing the path that had led to this moment. Derek and I met during our junior year at Syracuse University. I was studying architecture with dreams of designing sustainable buildings, while he pursued business with ambitions of Wall Street glory. We connected at a mutual friends party, and from the beginning, Derek charmed everyone he met, including me. After graduation, Derek announced he wanted to get his MBA at Columbia. Without hesitation, I agreed to move to New York with him, putting my own career aspirations on hold. I found work at a small architecture firm while Derek attended classes. Those 2 years were tight financially, but I believed we were building our future together. Every late night, I spent working extra hours to support us. Every dream I deferred was an investment in our shared life. When Derek landed a position at a prestigious investment firm, we celebrated like we'd both achieved something magnificent. Within a year, we were shopping for our own place. The apartment in Brooklyn Heights was perfect war charm, large windows overlooking the promenade, walking distance to the subway. The price tag was steep, but I had inheritance money from my grandmother. I contributed 80% of the down payment, though Derek insisted we put the property in both our names. At the time, I was busy with a new job at a larger firm and trusted him to handle the paperwork. The early years in that apartment were happy. We hosted dinner parties, renovated the kitchen together, talked about starting a family someday. I eventually shifted from architecture to real estate law, discovering I had a talent for navigating the complex legal aspects of property transactions. While my career flourished, Derek grew increasingly competitive, comparing our achievements, salaries, connections. 3 years into our marriage, I noticed subtle changes. Derek stayed later at the office, checked his phone more frequently, grew irritated over minor issues. I attributed it to work stress and gave him space. Space turned to distance, distance to disconnect. 2 years ago, I passed the bar exam and joined a boutique law firm specializing in real estate disputes. Derek seemed proud on the surface, but made cutting remarks about the lawyer wife to our friends. He started taking weekend business trips that he was oddly secretive about. I suspected something wasn't right, but pushed away my doubts, focusing instead on building my client base. Then, 3 months ago, I borrowed Derek's laptop when mine crashed before an important deadline. A text notification popped up. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Amanda." I stared at those words, feeling the foundation of my life crack. Instead of confronting him immediately, I took a step back and observed. More late nights, more secretive calls, more unexplained expenses from our joint accounts. I began gathering information quietly. I checked our financial statements and discovered Derek had been systematically moving money from our joint accounts to an account I had no access to. Small amounts at first, growing larger over time. I consulted a divorce attorney friend for hypothetical advice. I documented everything without letting on that I knew. Then came the most disturbing discovery of all. When reviewing our property documents for a case I was working on, I realized something crucial about our apartment. The deed had never been updated to include Derek as co-owner. Whether through oversight or deliberate manipulation, the property remained solely in my name. This meant that legally, Derek couldn't sell the apartment without my signature. As the plane began its descent into LaGuardia, I felt a strange calm. Derek thought he was delivering a devastating blow, leaving me homeless and heartbroken. What he didn't realize was that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had attempted to sell property he didn't legally own, and as a real estate attorney specializing in property disputes, I knew exactly how to handle this situation. The captain announced our final approach. I put away my laptop and straightened my suit. Derek expected to come home to a broken woman. Instead, he was about to face someone he had grossly underestimated. I wasn't just his soon-to-be ex-wife. I was Corinne Walker, and I was about to show him precisely what that meant. The Uber from the airport crawled through Manhattan traffic. I used the time to make several calls, speaking in hushed tones to avoid the driver overhearing. First, to my law partner and best friend Jill Thompson, then to our firm's most ruthless divorce attorney, Martin Goldstein, and finally to a locksmith who owed me a favor after I helped him with a tenant dispute. When I finally arrived home, the familiar facade of our brownstone felt different, tainted. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, bracing myself before climbing the steps. My key still worked small mercies. Inside, Derek was packing his designer suits into expensive luggage. He looked up, momentarily startled to see me so soon, then composed his face into what I now recognized as his practiced mask of charm. "You're back early," he said, continuing to fold a silk tie. "Client meeting wrapped up sooner than expected," I replied, setting down my briefcase. I maintained a neutral expression, giving nothing away. Derek studied me, clearly searching for signs of distress or anger. Finding none, he seemed almost disappointed. "Did you hear what I said on the phone? About the apartment?" I did. I moved to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. "When is the closing?" My practical question caught him off guard. He expected tears, begging, maybe screaming. My businesslike approach wasn't in his script. "Next Wednesday," he said. "You'll need to be out by then." "Who's the buyer?" I asked, leaning against the counter. Derek smirked. "Amanda's brother, Tyler. Got him to pay $700,000. Not full market value, but I needed to move quickly." He zipped his suitcase. "You should thank me. I could have taken less." I nodded thoughtfully, while secretly activating the recording app on my phone in my pocket. "So you sold our apartment to your girlfriend's brother for below market value. Interesting strategy." "It's done, Corinne," he snapped, irritation breaking through his smug facade. "I've already signed the papers. I'm staying at Amanda's tonight. You can have the place until closing to figure out your next move." "That's considerate of you," I said, my voice dripping with subtle sarcasm he completely missed. "And the money from the sale?" "Half is yours, legally. I'll have my lawyer contact you." He checked his watch. "I need to go. Amanda's waiting." After Derek left, I immediately went into action mode. I called Jill back. "He's gone," I said. And he admitted everything. Selling to Amanda's brother, the price, all of it. I recorded it. "Perfect," Jill replied. "Martin's already drafting the papers. How are you holding up?" "Better than expected," I answered honestly. 3 months of suspecting something like this was coming gave me time to prepare emotionally. "Did you tell him about the deed yet?" "No. I'm saving that for when he returns with Amanda tomorrow. He's planning to collect more of his things and probably gloat some more." "The locksmith?" "Coming in an hour. I'm also calling in the forensic accountant we used for the Bradshaw case." I spent the rest of the evening methodically implementing the plan I had been developing since discovering Derek's affair. I transferred my remaining personal funds from our joint accounts to my private account. I gathered all important documents, birth certificate, passport, financial records, and secured them in a lockbox. I changed all my passwords. The locksmith arrived promptly, a burly man named Frank, who specialized in quick, discreet work. As he changed the locks, I explained I was going through a difficult divorce. My ex tried to lock me out of my own house once. Frank said sympathetically as he handed me the new keys. Some people think they can get away with anything. After he left, I made one final call to Jake Sullivan, the private investigator I'd hired 3 weeks earlier, when I first suspected Derek might be planning something drastic. "Miss Walker," Jake's gravelly voice answered, "I was about to call you. Your husband just withdrew $50,000 from an account at First Republic Bank. Accounts in his name only, opened 6 months ago." "That fits the pattern," I said. "Anything else?" "Preliminary credit check shows he's taken out 3 personal loans in the last year, total of about $200,000. None of them appear in your joint financial statements." I processed this information, pieces clicking into place. He's been hiding debt. That explains the urgency to sell the apartment. "There's more," Jake continued. "The girlfriend, Amanda Lewis. She's not just any girlfriend. She's the sister of Tyler Lewis, junior partner at Derek's firm. And here's where it gets interesting. Tyler has been involved in several real estate ventures that have come under SEC scrutiny for suspicious financing. This new information changed the landscape entirely. Derek wasn't just leaving me for another woman, he was potentially entangling our assets in something legally dubious. "Jake, I need everything you can get on Tyler Lewis and these real estate deals. And monitor all activity on that First Republic account. Already on it. You'll have a full report by morning." I hung up and stood in the center of our living room, my living room. The space that had once represented our shared dreams now felt like a battlefield. Derek thought he was executing a perfect exit strategy, burning bridges as he went. What he didn't realize was that I had spent 3 months building fire breaks he couldn't see. Tomorrow, when Derek returned with Amanda, expecting to find me broken and scrambling, he would instead face the consequences of underestimating what I was capable of. He thought he was dealing with the supportive, accommodating wife who had put his needs first for 8 years. Instead, he would be confronting Corinne Walker, real estate attorney, woman scorned, and legal owner of the property he had fraudulently attempted to sell. The next morning, I was ready. I wore my power suit charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, the one I saved for court appearances, and arranged my allies strategically around the apartment. Jill sat at the dining table, legal documents spread before her. Martin Goldstein stood by the window, imposing in his tailored suit. Lisa Chen, our forensic accountant, worked quietly on her laptop in the corner. Frank the locksmith was finishing up installing a security camera above the front door. At precisely 11 o'clock, I heard Derek's key scraping ineffectively against the new lock, followed by frustrated jiggling of the doorknob. Then came the angry knocking. I nodded to Jill, who clicked the intercom. "Who is it?" she asked, though we all knew. "It's Derek Walker. My key isn't working. Open the door, Corinne." I walked calmly to the intercom. "I'll buzz you up, Derek. You and whoever is with you." The camera showed Derek turning to a woman beside him. Amanda, I presumed. She was younger than me, maybe 26, with expensively highlighted hair and an uncertain expression. Derek said something to her, his face tight with anger. When they reached our floor, I opened the door and greeted them with professional courtesy. "Derek, Amanda, please come in." Derek stormed past me, then stopped abruptly at the sight of the assembled group. "What the hell is this? Who are these people?" "My legal team," I replied calmly. "And Frank, who you met briefly. He's just finishing up with the security installation." Derek's face flushed. "You changed the locks? You can't do that." "Actually, I can. It's my apartment." Amanda hovered uncertainly near the door. "Derek, what's going on?" "Nothing," he snapped. "Corinne's just being difficult about the divorce. It's to be expected." He turned to me. "This is childish. I have every right to be here. My name is on the lease." "That's our first order of business," I said, gesturing to the dining table. "Please, both of you, sit down. There's something you should know about the property status of this apartment." Derek reluctantly took a seat, Amanda beside him. I nodded to Jill, who slid a document across the table. This is the current deed to the apartment, I explained. As you can see, it lists only one owner, Corinne Walker. Derek snatched up the paper, his face transitioning from anger to confusion to panic as he scanned it. This can't be right. We put it in both our names when we bought it. That was the plan, I agreed. But the paperwork was never filed correctly. You were in charge of that, remember? You told me it was handled. This is some kind of trick, Derek said, his voice rising. You changed this recently to screw me over. Martin stepped forward. The deed has been in Miss Walker's name alone since purchase in 2016. We've verified this with the county recorder's office. There was never an amendment filed to add you as a co-owner, Mr. Walker. Amanda looked at Derek, confusion clouding her features. You told me the apartment was jointly owned. It is, Derek insisted. Corinne's lying. She must have bribed someone to alter the records. That would be a serious accusation of fraud against a licensed attorney, Martin replied coldly. Do you have evidence to support such a claim? Derek's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Here's our current situation, Derek, I continued. You attempted to sell property that wasn't legally yours to sell. That's fraud. You've also been systematically withdrawing funds from our joint accounts without my knowledge. That's financial misconduct in a marriage. Lisa spoke up from her corner. Mr. Walker, I've identified suspicious transfers totaling $322,000 over the past 14 months from your joint accounts to a private account at First Republic Bank. Derek's eyes darted between us. Those were investments for our future. Investments requiring secrecy from your wife? Lisa asked. Including $50,000 withdrawn yesterday, immediately after informing your wife of your intention to divorce? Amanda turned to Derek, her expression hardening. You said the money for our new place was coming from your bonuses. It was, he said quickly. Some of it. Listen, Amanda, this isn't what it looks like. I slid another document across the table. This is also interesting. A credit check revealing 3 personal loans totaling $200,000, none of which were disclosed to me. Care to explain? Derek's face had lost all color. This is private financial information. How did you get this? I'm thorough, Derek. Something you should have remembered about me. I leaned forward. Now, about the sale of this apartment to Amanda's brother Tyler. That transaction is void. I've already contacted the title company to alert them to the fraudulent nature of the sale. You can't do that. Derek stood up, fists clenched. The sale is already in process. A sale initiated through fraud, Martin interjected. Mr. Lewis will be receiving formal notification today that the property was never legally available for purchase. Amanda stood up abruptly. Tyler said everything was above board. Derek assured us both. I turned to her. Did you know Tyler was recently passed over for partner at your brother's firm? The same week Derek was denied his expected promotion? This was news to me until last night, when Jake's report came in, but Amanda's shocked expression confirmed it was also news to her. Derek had been hiding his career setback from both of us. That's a lie, Derek sputtered, but his face told the truth. It's not, I replied. Just as it's not a lie that Tyler's real estate ventures have drawn SEC attention? Is that why you needed quick cash, Derek? Are you involved in something with Tyler that's putting our assets at risk? Derek's expression shifted from panic to rage. You spied on me? Had me investigated? Who do you think you are? I'm the woman who supported you through business school, who contributed 80% of the down payment for this apartment, who built a legal career while you were making increasingly risky financial moves behind my back. I stood to match his posture, and I'm the legal owner of this property, which you attempted to sell fraudulently. Amanda gathered her purse. I need to talk to Tyler, right now. She turned to me. I didn't know about any of this. Derek told me you were separating amicably. Nothing about this is amicable, I replied. After Amanda left, Derek's composure completely collapsed. You've ruined everything, he hissed. You had no right to interfere in my financial affairs or contact Amanda's brother. You gave me every right when you attempted to sell my home without my knowledge or consent. I gestured to Frank, who had finished his installation and stood ready by the door. You have 30 minutes to collect essential personal items. Then I'll need you to leave. This is my home too. You can't just throw me out. Jill stood up. Mr. Walker, Miss Walker has been more than generous under the circumstances. You have committed actionable fraud. She could have you arrested right now. Derek looked from face to face, searching for sympathy, and finding none. This isn't over, Corinne, he said, his voice low and threatening. You have no idea what you're getting into. I met his gaze steadily. Neither did you, Derek. Neither did you. As Derek stalked off to pack a suitcase, Martin quietly approached me. That went better than expected. We're not done, I replied. That was just the opening move. What Derek didn't know was that his threats didn't frighten me. After years of putting his needs before mine, of making myself smaller to accommodate his ego, I was finally standing at my full height. And from this vantage point, I could see clearly what needed to happen next. The next week unfolded like psychological warfare. Derek, reeling from the confrontation, launched a multi-pronged attack designed to break me down. First came the social offensive. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from mutual friends asking if I was okay, if the rumors were true. Derek had apparently been busy, telling anyone who would listen that I had become unstable, obsessed, and ultimately unfaithful. According to his narrative, he was the wronged party, forced to take drastic measures to protect himself from my increasingly erratic behavior. Did you really cheat on Derek with someone at your firm? Texted Sarah, a friend from our college days who had always been closer to Derek. Is it true you've been seeing a psychiatrist for anger issues? Asked Tom, Derek's racquetball partner. Each message was a small wound, but I had anticipated this tactic. I responded with brief, dignified messages. Derek and I are going through a difficult divorce. I'd rather not share details, but I appreciate your concern. No denials, no counter-accusations. Let Derek exhaust himself spinning stories, while I conserved my energy for the battles that mattered. The financial attacks were more concerning. Derek froze our remaining joint credit cards. He contacted clients of mine, suggesting I was distracted by personal problems and might not give their cases proper attention. He filed a complaint with the Bar Association alleging ethical violations baseless, but requiring time and energy to address. Then came the most underhanded move. I had been preparing for weeks for a major presentation to Jackson Property Group, a potential client whose business could transform our firm's profile. The morning of the presentation, I discovered my carefully prepared slides had been altered. Key figures changed, sections deleted. Only someone with my password could have made these changes. I worked frantically with Jill through the night to reconstruct everything. When I finally stood before the Jackson executives, I was operating on zero sleep and pure adrenaline. Miss Walker, said Gregory Jackson, the CEO, after my presentation, I received a concerning email about your personal circumstances potentially affecting your ability to handle our business. I met his gaze steadily. Mr. Jackson, I believe in transparency. I am going through a divorce. It is contentious. But I assure you that my personal circumstances have only strengthened my commitment to excellence. In fact, this situation has given me unique insight into the emotional components of property disputes that many attorneys overlook. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I appreciate your candor, and frankly, your presentation was the most thorough we've seen. We'd like to move forward with your firm. That small victory gave me strength, but Derek's attacks continued to escalate. Anonymous deliveries arrived at my door, a book on coping with mental illness, brochures for addiction treatment centers, things designed to unsettle me. Late, night calls from blocked numbers, emails containing private photos of us that he threatened to share. Through it all, I maintained my public composure, but privately, the strain was taking its toll. I lost weight. Sleep became a luxury. I jumped at unexpected sounds. My apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt contaminated by Derek's presence, even in his absence. One evening, as I sat reviewing case files, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, fearing another of Derek's tactics, but professional habit won out. Corinne Walker speaking. Miss Walker, this is Amanda Lewis. I straightened, instantly alert. Amanda, this is unexpected. I need to talk to you. Her voice sounded strained. Not over the phone. Can we meet? I hesitated. This could easily be a trap, another of Derek's schemes. It's not what you think, she added, seeming to read my silence correctly. Derek doesn't know I'm calling you. This is. I've learned some things. Things you should know. We arranged to meet at a small cafe in Williamsburg, far from our usual haunts. I arrived early, chose a table with a clear view of the entrance, and waited. Amanda arrived precisely on time, looking nothing like the polished woman who had stood in my apartment. Her hair was pulled back severely, her face bare of makeup, dark circles under her eyes. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding into the seat opposite me. I admit I'm curious, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Amanda wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. After that day at your apartment, I confronted Tyler about the property purchase. He eventually admitted the whole thing. Derek approached him 3 months ago with a proposition. Derek would sell him your apartment below market value, and in exchange, Tyler would cut Derek in on some investment deal. She looked up at me. A deal I now realize is probably illegal. I nodded slowly. The SEC investigation. Yes, but there's more. She took a deep breath. Derek isn't just leaving you for me. He's been using me. Using my connection to Tyler to get into this investment scheme. Our relationship was part of his plan. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Whatever anger I felt toward Amanda had dissolved in the face of her obvious pain. Don't be. I should have seen it. The signs were all there. She pulled out her phone. But that's not why I wanted to meet you. I found these on Derek's laptop. She pushed the phone across the table. On the screen was an email from Derek to someone named William Carter. The subject line read, Walker Financial Discrepancies. I scanned the email, my blood running cold. Derek was writing to his boss, suggesting that I had been pressuring him to misrepresent company finances to support my extravagant lifestyle. The email detailed supposed conversations where I had encouraged Derek to manipulate reports to increase his bonuses. It's all lies, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I know, Amanda replied. I found drafts of other emails too. He's setting up a narrative, trying to make it look like you were the one pushing for financial misconduct. I think he's scared of something. Something at work. The investigation you mentioned? She nodded. Tyler let something slip. There's an internal audit happening at Derek's firm. I think he's being investigated for embezzlement. Suddenly, Derek's desperate move to sell the apartment made perfect sense. He wasn't just leaving me, he was extracting assets before they could be frozen or seized. His rush, his willingness to take below market value, his need for quick cash, it all pointed to someone preparing for legal trouble. There's one more thing, Amanda said, her voice dropping lower. Derek's planning to leave the country. I found flight searches on his laptop. Buenos Aires. One-way ticket. I felt a chill run through me. If Derek fled the jurisdiction, recovering any of our joint assets would become exponentially more difficult. Amanda, I need copies of everything you found. Emails, flight searches, anything related to Tyler's investment scheme. She nodded. I've already forwarded everything to myself. I can send it all to you. She looked at me directly. I want you to know, I never would have gotten involved with him if I'd known he was married. He told me you two were separated, that the divorce was already in process. I only learned the truth that day in your apartment. I believed her. The pain and anger in her eyes was too raw to be feigned. What will you do now? I asked. Distance myself from both Derek and Tyler as much as possible. Try to make sure I'm not implicated in whatever they're involved in. She stood to leave, then paused. Be careful, Corinne. Derek is scared, and he blames you for everything falling apart. When we last spoke, he was not rational. After Amanda left, I sat alone, processing everything. Derek's actions were those of a desperate man, cornered and dangerous. His attacks on me weren't just about revenge or the apartment, they were about creating a scapegoat, a distraction from his own misconduct. I pulled out my phone and called Jake Sullivan. I need everything you can find on William Carter at Meridian Investments and any internal investigations happening there. And I need to know if Derek Walker has booked any flights to Argentina. As I walked home through the Brooklyn streets, I felt a strange mix of vindication and fear. I had been right about Derek's betrayal, but the situation was more dangerous than I had imagined. This wasn't just a divorce, it was a battle for my professional reputation, my financial security, and possibly even my safety. But for the first time since Derek's call from Chicago, I felt the balance of power shifting. With Amanda's evidence and my own investigation, I was no longer reacting to Derek's moves. I was finally in position to take control of the narrative and my future. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with my legal team in the conference room of our firm. Jill, Martin, and Lisa were already there when I arrived, along with Jake Sullivan, who looked as though he hadn't slept. I have news, Jake announced without preamble. You were right about William Carter. He's the chief financial officer at Meridian, and according to my source in their IT department, they've been conducting a quiet internal investigation into financial irregularities for the past 6 months. Focusing on Derek? I asked. Not initially. It started with another manager, but the trail led to the entire trading desk, including Derek. They've built a solid case of embezzlement through manipulated trade records. We're talking 7 figures. Jill let out a low whistle. That explains the urgency to liquidate assets. And the flight to Argentina, I added. Jake confirmed Derek purchased a one-way ticket departing next Tuesday. Martin leaned forward. This changes our strategy completely. We're not just dealing with a contentious divorce and fraudulent property sale. We're potentially looking at being accessories after the fact if we don't report what we know. I've been thinking about that, I said. What if instead of just defending ourselves against Derek, we approach William Carter directly? Lisa frowned. Isn't that dangerous? Getting involved in a corporate fraud case? Not if we position it correctly. I outlined my plan, watching their expressions shift from concern to cautious approval. 2 hours later, I sat in the lobby of Meridian Investments, waiting to be called into William Carter's office. I had requested the meeting through formal channels, presenting myself as a concerned spouse with information relevant to their internal investigation. The receptionist had initially been dismissive until I mentioned specific transaction dates that Jake had uncovered. William Carter turned out to be younger than I expected, maybe 40, with a precise manner and watchful eyes. Miss Walker, he said, offering a firm handshake. Your message was intriguing, if unorthodox. What exactly do you think you know about our internal matters? I know that Derek Walker, my soon-to-be ex-husband, has been involved in manipulating trade records to embezzle funds. I know he's working with Tyler Lewis on a potentially illegal investment scheme, and I know he's planning to flee the country next Tuesday. Carter's expression remained impassive, but his posture stiffened. Those are serious allegations. They're facts, Mr. Carter. Facts I can substantiate. I placed a thumb drive on his desk. This contains evidence of Derek's financial misconduct, both within your firm and in our marriage. It includes emails where he attempts to create a false narrative implicating me in his schemes. Carter didn't touch the drive. Why are you bringing this to me instead of the authorities? Because I believe in appropriate channels. Your investigation predates my knowledge of Derek's activities. I'm not looking to drive the prosecution. I'm providing information that may be useful to your existing case. And what do you want in return, Miss Walker? Cooperation. Derek has attempted to sell property he doesn't legally own, has drained our joint accounts, and is preparing to flee the jurisdiction. I want to ensure that when your investigation becomes public, my interests as the wronged spouse are protected. Carter studied me for a long moment before picking up the thumb drive. I'll review this information. If it proves valuable to our investigation, we may be able to coordinate our efforts with your legal team. That's all I ask. As I left Meridian's offices, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to Derek's attacks, I was shaping the battlefield. Back at my firm, I found Jill waiting with unexpected news of her own. The Jackson account is official, she announced, waving a signed contract. And not just the property dispute we pitched, they want us to handle all their legal real estate matters on the East Coast. That's incredible, I said, genuinely stunned. After everything Derek had done to sabotage the presentation, we had not only won the client but expanded the scope of work. Gregory Jackson called personally. Said he was impressed by your resilience under pressure. Jill grinned. Apparently, professional grace in the face of personal crisis is a selling point. That afternoon, Amanda called with news of her own. Derek had contacted her, frantic after discovering she had moved out of her apartment. He knows I took files from his laptop, she said, her voice tense. He's threatening to implicate me in Tyler's scheme if I don't return them and tell him what I've done with the information. Are you safe? I asked immediately. Yes. I'm staying with a friend he doesn't know, but I'm worried about what he might do next. Come to my office, I told her. My team can help protect you legally, and we should document his threats. By the time Amanda arrived, I had set up a meeting with a criminal defense attorney friend who specialized in white-collar crime. Between Amanda's evidence, Jake's investigation, and my own documentation, we were building a comprehensive picture of Derek's activities. I never thought I'd be working with my boyfriend's wife to take him down, Amanda said with a bitter laugh as we sorted through evidence. Ex-boyfriend, I corrected. And soon, too, be ex-wife. She looked at me curiously. How are you so calm about all this? If it were me, I'd be falling apart. I considered the question seriously. 3 months ago, when I first discovered Derek's affair, I was devastated. But then I got angry, and then I got strategic. Each day since then has been about reclaiming pieces of myself that got lost during our marriage. I met her gaze. This isn't just about holding Derek accountable. It's about remembering who I am without him. Amanda nodded slowly. I think I need to do the same thing. Over the next few days, our unlikely alliance strengthened. Amanda moved temporarily into Jill's spare bedroom for safety. William Carter confirmed that the evidence we provided was substantive and actionable. The Bar Association dismissed Derek's complaint against me as baseless. Most surprisingly, friends began reaching out not with awkward questions, but with support. Derek's smear campaign had initially worked, but as his behavior grew more erratic, people started seeing through the lies. Sarah, who had questioned me about cheating, called to apologize. Derek showed up at my place at 2 a.m, demanding to know if I'd heard from you or Amanda, she explained. He was scary. Not the Derek I thought I knew. I'm sorry I believed him about you. One by one, our social circle shifted allegiance. Not everyone Derek had cultivated some loyal supporters, but enough that I no longer felt isolated. 7 days after my meeting with William Carter, I received a call from him requesting another meeting, this time with my full legal team present. We convened at Meridian's offices the following morning. Carter got straight to the point. Our investigation into Derek Walker's activities has reached its conclusion. The evidence you provided was instrumental in connecting several key components of the case. He slid a folder across the table. This outlines the findings relevant to your interests. In short, we've documented embezzlement of approximately $2.3 million over 4 years. The number was staggering. I had known Derek was involved in financial misconduct, but the scale exceeded my worst suspicions. We'll be turning our findings over to the SEC and federal prosecutors tomorrow, Carter continued. Before we do, we wanted to offer you an opportunity to cooperate with us on a coordinated approach. Martin, ever the pragmatist, asked, "What exactly are you proposing?" Miss Walker has a legitimate interest in recovering marital assets that Mr. Walker has hidden or misappropriated. We have a corporate interest in minimizing public scandal while ensuring justice is served. I believe we can structure an approach that serves both goals. By the end of the meeting, we had outlined a strategy. Meridian would pursue criminal charges focused on the embezzlement. My team would handle the civil side, recovering misappropriated marital assets. In exchange for my cooperation with their investigation, Meridian would ensure my interests were protected in any settlement discussions. As we were leaving, Carter pulled me aside. "Off the record, Miss Walker, your husband has made some powerful enemies with his actions. Your decision to come forward probably saved you from being caught in the crossfire." His words confirmed what I had suspected. Derek's desperate moves weren't just about our marriage falling apart. He was trying to escape the consequences of years of financial misconduct that had finally caught up with him. That night, Amanda, Jill, and I shared a bottle of wine in my apartment, the first time I had felt relaxed enough to truly enjoy the space since Derek's call. "To unlikely alliances," Jill toasted, raising her glass, "and to women who refuse to be collateral damage in men's schemes," Amanda added. I raised my glass to join theirs, to reclaiming what's ours. As we talked into the night, I realized something remarkable had emerged from Derek's betrayal. Not just a legal strategy or a path to financial recovery, but genuine connections built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Derek had tried to isolate me, to break me down. Instead, he had inadvertently helped me build something stronger than what he destroyed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Meridian's case going public, the formal filing of divorce proceedings, Derek's inevitable backlash when he realized the full extent of what was happening. But for the first time in months, I wasn't facing those challenges alone. The news broke on a Wednesday morning. Meridian Investment Executive faces embezzlement charges. Derek's name appeared in the third paragraph, listed among those under investigation. By noon, financial news sites were running the story with Derek's name in the headlines. By evening, it was the lead story on local news. I watched the coverage from my office, a strange numbness replacing the anxiety I had expected to feel. Jill stood beside me, hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" she asked. "Better than I thought I'd be," I answered honestly. "It feels like watching a movie about someone else's life." My phone had been ringing constantly. Reporters, distant acquaintances, even Derek's parents. I let most calls go to voicemail, responding only to close friends and my legal team. Derek himself hadn't contacted me directly, which worried me more than if he had been making threats. "He's too quiet," I told Martin during our afternoon strategy call. "That's not like Derek." "We have the restraining order in place," Martin reminded me, "and the security system at your apartment. If he tries anything, we're prepared." Despite these reassurances, I left work early, an uneasy feeling settling in my stomach. Amanda had moved to her sister's home in Connecticut for safety, and Jill was attending a conference in Boston. For the first time in weeks, I would be spending the night alone in my apartment. The building seemed unusually quiet as I rode the elevator to my floor. The hallway lights were dimmer than usual, perhaps a bulb had burned out. I approached my door cautiously, keys already in hand, security code ready to enter. The first sign something was wrong was the small scratch marks around the keyhole. Someone had attempted to pick the lock. I backed away immediately, pulling out my phone to call the police. Before I could dial, The door swung open. Derek stood in the entryway, his appearance shocking me into momentary silence. His normally impeccable self was gone, replaced by someone with disheveled hair, rumpled clothes, and wild eyes. "Were you just going to stand out there all night?" he asked, his voice eerily calm. I took another step back. "Derek, you're violating the restraining order. The police are on their way." A bluff, but he didn't know that. He laughed, an unsettling sound. "Of course they are. You've thought of everything, haven't you, Corinne? Always 3 steps ahead." I kept my phone visible, my finger hovering over the emergency call button. "How did you get in? I lived here for 8 years. You think I don't know how to get into my own home?" "It's not your home, Derek. It never was, legally." His face darkened. Always the lawyer, always the technicalities. He stepped back from the doorway. "Come in. Let's talk. One last conversation before everything changes." Every instinct told me to run, but I knew Derek well enough to recognize the dangerous edge in his voice. If I fled, he might snap completely. Better to keep him talking, keep him focused on me, rather than destroying the apartment or worse. I stepped inside cautiously, staying near the door, keeping maximum distance between us. The apartment was in disarray, drawers pulled out, papers scattered, picture frames smashed. "What have you done?" I asked, surveying the damage. "Looked for evidence. Proof of how long you've been planning this." He gestured wildly at the chaos. "You destroyed me, Corinne. Everything I built. Everything we had. You destroyed us when you decided to cheat, steal, and lie," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "When you tried to sell property that wasn't yours. When you drained our accounts." "I was protecting us," he shouted, slamming his hand on the counter. "Everything I did was to secure our future before it all came crashing down." "Our future? You were planning to flee to Argentina with my money and your girlfriend." He paced the living room like a caged animal. "You have no idea what pressure I was under. The expectations. The demands. You with your perfect career trajectory. Your ethical boundaries." He spat the last words like an insult. "Some of us have to get our hands dirty to get ahead." I edged toward a lamp that could serve as a weapon if needed. "Is that how you justify embezzling millions? Getting your hands dirty? The company was stealing from clients for years. I just took my fair share." His voice rose hysterically. "And I would have gotten away with it if you hadn't interfered." While he ranted, I subtly pressed the panic button on the security system remote in my pocket. Silent alarm, direct to police dispatch. Frank had insisted on the feature when installing the system, and now I said a silent thank you to his foresight. "It's over, Derek," I said calmly. "Meridian has all the evidence. The SEC is involved. Running won't help now. It's only over if I say it's over." He moved suddenly, grabbing a heavy crystal vase, a wedding gift from his parents, and hurling it against the wall. Glass shattered everywhere. "You think you've won? You've ruined everything. My career, my reputation, my future." I flinched but held my ground. "You did that yourself." "No!" he shouted, his face contorted with rage. "You could have looked the other way. You could have taken the money and moved on. Instead, you had to play detective, lawyer, and judge." As he continued his tirade, I realized I needed to get him talking about specific actions, evidence that could be used later. I subtly activated the recording app on my phone. "Was that why you tried to sabotage my Jackson presentation? To punish me for not looking the other way? That client was worth 10 times what you deserve," he snarled. "I had to show you there were consequences for betraying me." "And the false complaint to the Bar Association? I wanted to destroy your precious career the way you destroyed mine." He kicked over a side table. "The perfect Corinne Walker, so ethical, so principled. I wanted everyone to see you were just as corrupt as the rest of us." "What about Amanda? Was she just collateral damage in your scheme too?" His expression shifted, something like genuine pain flashing across his face. "Amanda was a complication. I didn't expect to actually care about her, but you used her to get to her brother. For his investment scheme, Tyler had connections I needed. The apartment sale was going to fund our entry into the offshore account. He laughed bitterly. Now Tyler's probably cutting a deal with prosecutors, saving his own skin. Loyalty means nothing to people like that. The irony of his statement was almost laughable, but I kept my expression neutral. Is that why you're here, Derek? To punish me for disloyalty? His eyes narrowed. I came to get what's mine. The emergency cash. I know you found it. I genuinely had no idea what he was talking about. What cash? Don't play dumb. He stormed toward the bedroom. The 100,000 in the wall safe. There was no wall safe in our apartment. Derek was either hallucinating or had hidden cash somewhere I hadn't discovered. I used his momentary absence to move closer to the door, texting Jake Sullivan with my free hand. Derek broke in. Police coming. Need backup. Derek returned, looking even more frantic. Where is it? What did you do with it? There is no wall safe, Derek. There never was. Liar! He grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. You took everything else. You must have found the cash, too. For the first time, real fear shot through me. Derek was unhinged, dangerous. I needed to de-escalate immediately. Derek, let go of me, I said firmly. The police are on their way. Don't make this worse for yourself. Worse? He laughed manically. How could it possibly get worse? I'm facing federal charges. My accounts are frozen. My career is over. You need a lawyer, not another criminal charge for assault. He released me with a shove. Always the practical one. In the distance, I heard sirens. Derek heard them too, his head snapping toward the window. You actually called them, he said, sounding almost impressed. I didn't think you would. It's over, Derek, I repeated softly. This isn't a battle you can win. The fight seemed to drain out of him suddenly. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I really thought I could pull it off. The perfect exit strategy. New money, new woman, new life. He looked up at me with empty eyes. How did you figure it all out so quickly? You underestimated me, I said simply. You always did. The sirens grew louder. Derek stood, straightening his rumpled jacket in a pathetic attempt at dignity. So what happens now? I go to jail? You get everything? That depends on you. I met his gaze steadily. Cooperation could mitigate the consequences. Full confession. Financial restitution. Accepting responsibility, it won't erase what's happened, but it could reduce the fallout. He laughed hollowly. Now you're negotiating? After all this? I'm offering you a choice, which is more than you gave me. Heavy footsteps pounded in the hallway, followed by urgent knocking. Police! Open up! Derek looked at the door, then back at me. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I had once loved, confused, frightened, but not entirely lost. I never meant for it to end like this, he said quietly. I know, I replied, and was surprised to realize I meant it. I opened the door to 4 police officers, Jake Sullivan right behind them. As Derek was handcuffed and read his rights, Jake pulled me into the hallway. Are you hurt? He asked, scanning me for injuries. No. Shaken, but not hurt. I watched as Derek was led toward the elevator. He's not the man I thought I knew. Jake squeezed my shoulder. People rarely are in crises. The question is, what you do with that knowledge. As I gave my statement to the police, describing Derek's break-in, threats, and confessions, I felt a strange sense of closure. The man being taken away in handcuffs wasn't my husband anymore, perhaps he never had been. The Derek I married was partly my own creation, a projection of who I wanted him to be. Later that night, after the police had gone and Jake had arranged for a security guard to watch my building, I stood in the wreckage of my apartment. Broken glass, scattered papers, shattered frames, physical manifestations of a broken marriage. But beneath the destruction, the bones of the home remained sound. The walls still stood. The foundation held. I picked up a torn photograph Derek and me on our wedding day, his arm around my waist, both of us smiling. I studied his face, searching for signs of the deception to come. There were none, or perhaps I simply hadn't wanted to see them. With careful deliberation, I placed the torn photo in the trash. Not with anger or bitterness, but with the calm certainty that some chapters must close before new ones can begin. Tomorrow would bring police reports, insurance claims, cleanup. Legal proceedings would continue for months. But tonight, standing in the quiet aftermath of the storm, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Derek had come to reclaim what he believed was his, only to find it was already gone. And in losing everything he had schemed for, he had ultimately freed us both. 6 months passed, in a blur of legal proceedings, professional achievements, and personal growth. The calendar had turned from winter to summer, and with it, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined when I received that fateful call from Derek. I stood on the balcony of my apartment, truly mine now, in every sense watching the sunset paint Brooklyn in shades of gold and rose. The space behind me had been completely renovated, every trace of Derek's destructive final stand erased. New furniture, new paint colors, new artwork, all chosen by me, for me. My phone buzzed with a text from Jill. "Cars downstairs. Ready for the big night?" Tonight was the official launch party for our firm's new division, Walker and Thompson Family Financial Protection, specializing in helping victims of financial abuse navigate the legal complexities of securing their assets and rebuilding their lives. What had begun as my personal nightmare had evolved into a professional purpose. I texted back, "On my way," and took one last look around the apartment. On the entry table sat a framed news clipping, "Meridian executive sentenced in embezzlement scheme." Derek had eventually accepted a plea deal, 5 years in federal prison, restitution of all stolen funds, and full cooperation with authorities. He was serving his time in a minimum security facility in Pennsylvania, far from the life of luxury he had once envisioned. The aftermath of his arrest had revealed even more than we initially uncovered. The wall safe he had ranted about turned out to be a clever hiding spot behind a ventilation panel containing $120,000 in cash and fake passports. The SEC investigation expanded to include 12 other executives at Meridian. Tyler Lewis turned state's evidence and received a reduced sentence. Amanda had moved to Seattle for a fresh start, but we still spoke occasionally. She had become an unexpected ally in developing resources for our new practice, sharing her perspective as someone who had been unwittingly drawn into a financial scheme. If I had known the warning signs, she told me during our last call, I might have seen through Derek much sooner. Those warning signs now formed the backbone of our client education materials. Red flags in financial relationships, questions to ask before commingling assets, the importance of documentation and transparency. Downstairs, Jill waited in the car, elegant in a navy suit that matched my own. "Nervous?" she asked, as I slid into the seat beside her. "Excited," I corrected. 6 months ago, I thought Derek had destroyed everything. Now look at us. The venue for our launch party was a renovated warehouse in Dumbo, with soaring ceilings and views of the Manhattan skyline. As we walked in, I was momentarily overwhelmed by the crowd: legal colleagues, financial professionals, journalists, and most importantly, clients who had already benefited from our specialized services. Gregory Jackson, whose property group had become our biggest client, approached with champagne flutes. To the women who turned personal adversity into professional innovation, he toasted. Martin Goldstein raised his glass. And who made their old partner jealous in the process. He winked at me. "My firm has been trying to replicate your success with our own financial abuse division. We can't compete." As I circulated through the room, accepting congratulations and discussing cases, I caught sight of a familiar face. William Carter stood by the window, observing the gathering with measured interest. "Mr. Carter?" I greeted him. I'm surprised to see you here. Miss Walker? He nodded. I received your invitation and was intrigued. Meridian has implemented new oversight protocols based in part on your recommendations. The board thought it prudent to see your operation firsthand. And your assessment? A rare smile crossed his face. Impressive. You've created something valuable from a situation that might have destroyed someone with less resilience. Necessity is a powerful motivator, I replied. As is justice, he added. Later, as I prepared to address the gathering, I scanned the faces before me. Jill, my partner in all things professional, now a cherished friend. Lisa Chen, our forensic accountant, who had expanded her role to develop preventative financial planning for vulnerable clients. Jake Sullivan, whose security firm now offered specialized services for those experiencing financial stalking and harassment. Frank the locksmith, who had installed custom security systems in every client's home free of charge. And beyond them, the clients whose stories had become interwoven with my own. The woman who discovered her husband had mortgaged their home without her knowledge. The man whose business partner had systematically siphoned profits for years. The elderly couple whose son had emptied their retirement accounts. Each case unique, yet connected by the thread of betrayal and the determination to recover. I stepped to the microphone, the room falling silent. 6 months ago, I received a phone call that changed my life. My husband informed me he was divorcing me and had already sold our apartment, an apartment he had no legal right to sell. That call set in motion a series of events that revealed financial fraud, embezzlement, and betrayal on a scale I could never have imagined. I paused, looking out at the attentive faces. Many people asked why I didn't just take the settlement he eventually offered. Why I pursued full accountability instead of a quick resolution. The answer is simple. Because financial abuse thrives in shadows. It prospers when we choose expedience over justice. It continues when we prioritize peace over truth. Nods of recognition rippled through the audience. Our new division exists because I learned firsthand that legal expertise alone isn't enough. Victims of financial abuse need advocates who understand both the emotional and legal dimensions of their experience, who can guide them through recovery of assets, while also supporting their recovery of self. I gestured to the team around me. Together, we've created a model that addresses the full spectrum of needs: legal protection, financial reconstruction, security planning, and personal empowerment. Every client who walks through our doors receives not just representation, but a roadmap back to stability and control. After my speech, as the evening wound down, Jill found me on the rooftop terrace, gazing at the Brooklyn Bridge, illuminated against the night sky. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, joining me at the railing. "I was just thinking about something my grandmother used to say," I replied, "that some lessons cost more than others, but the most expensive ones are usually worth the price." And was this one worth it? I considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, I would have said no, that the pain of Derek's betrayal could never be balanced by any positive outcome. I turned to face the city lights. But now, seeing what we've built, the people we've helped, yes, it was worth it. Not because what he did was acceptable, but because what came after was valuable. "Two expensive lessons, then," Jill said, raising an imaginary glass. "And to what we build from them," I completed the toast. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through windows no longer covered by the heavy drapes Derek had preferred. My home, my sanctuary, had been reclaimed and reimagined, just like my life. I made coffee and settled at my desk to review the day's schedule. 3 new client consultations, a meeting with a women's shelter about providing pro bono services, an interview with a financial magazine about identifying hidden assets. My phone chimed with an email notification from Derek's prison email account. Subject line, apology. My finger hovered over the delete button, then paused. With deliberate calm, I opened the message. "Corinne, After 6 months of therapy and reflection, I am beginning to understand the magnitude of the harm I caused. No excuses or justifications, just an acknowledgement of wrongdoing and genuine regret. You deserved better. I hope you've rebuilt something meaningful, Derek. I read it twice, searching for manipulation or hidden agenda. Finding none, I composed a brief reply. Derek, I acknowledge your apology. I have indeed rebuilt something meaningful. In fact, something I might never have discovered without the catalyst of our ending. I hope your time is being used for genuine reflection and growth, Corinne. As I pressed send, I felt the final thread of our past severing cleanly. Not with anger or bitterness, but with the quiet finality of a chapter truly closed. Later that day, I hosted a small dinner party in my renovated apartment. Not a celebration of any particular milestone, but a gathering of the unexpected community that had formed through crisis. Jill and her new girlfriend, Lisa and her husband, Jake Sullivan and his teenage daughter, a few clients who had become friends. As conversation and laughter filled the space once dominated by Derek's presence, I realized something profound. He had thought he was destroying my world with that phone call. Instead, he had inadvertently forced me to rebuild it, stronger and more authentic than before. When dinner was cleared and dessert served, I raised my glass. To unexpected journeys I toasted, and to the people who walk beside us when the path takes a turn we never anticipated. To resilience, Jill added. To justice, Jake offered. To new beginnings, said Margot, a client whose financial recovery had recently been completed. As glasses clinked and smiles shone around my table, I felt a sense of completion. The woman who had received that devastating phone call 6 months ago would never have imagined this scene, this home, these friends, this purpose. She had been defined by her marriage, her identity partially subsumed by Derek's. The woman I had become was wholly myself, tested by betrayal, strengthened by challenge, and ultimately liberated by the very crisis meant to destroy her. Derek's call hadn't ended my story. It had merely ended a chapter, making space for new pages yet to be written. And those pages, I now knew with unshakable certainty, would be written by my hand alone. Have you ever had to completely rebuild your life after a betrayal? I'd love to hear how you transformed a painful experience into something meaningful. Please share your stories in the comments below. Like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and transformation, and share with someone who might need to hear that even the most devastating endings can lead to powerful new beginnings. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength and wisdom on yours.